As I sit here putting together this monthly market update for April, it's hard to believe that we're in April. I mean, is it just me or you kind of get that feeling that this year is just flying by? In fact, it's over a year now since the pandemic started. And who would have known a year ago that this is what we would have been dealing with still a year later? This is Andrew with the Andrew Smith team at eXp Realty. And this month for the market report, I'm going to break it down into four main areas that we're going to focus on. We're going to talk about inventory, as that's a hot topic right now. It's like, where are all the homes for sale? We're going to touch on mortgage rates. What's the latest in the mortgage rates? I'm going to talk about home prices, because if you're not aware of it, home prices have been going up. They've been going up fairly rapidly. And then lastly, we're going to give a quick update on foreclosures, forbearance. That was a hot topic a year ago as the pandemic started, and there's been multiple reports out there about, oh my gosh, we've got a housing crisis coming and we're going to be inundated with foreclosures, and there's a foreclosure wave and tsunami, and the housing market's going to be devastated. And if you happen to see videos I did a year ago, I wasn't so sure. And I'm not claiming to be any expert by any means, but after going through that market last time and seeing the fundamentals and the dynamics and what was happening right before in the real estate market, I can tell you that this market is nothing like that. And the banks learn their lessons. They do not want to own property, but we're going to touch on that last here. So first and foremost, inventory. That's the hot topic. Right? And it's the hot topic because the biggest challenge that the real estate market has right now, believe it or not, is inventory. You can't buy what isn't for sale. And in certain markets, and I've seen certain news reports out there, they talk about pending sales being down. And they focus in on that aspect that, is that a slowdown in the real estate market? And the answer is no, it's not a slowdown in the real estate market at all. Plain and simple, you can't buy what isn't for sale, right? It's kind of like the rush on toilet paper during the pandemic. You can't buy it if it's not on the shelf, right? And real estate's that way right now. There's simply not enough homes for sale compared to the number of buyers in the marketplace right now. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. Let me move myself out of the way here, shrink myself down a little bit, as I'm sure you don't want to look at me anyway. And then we'll touch base on some of these key metrics. So I don't have a lot of year over year comparisons. I've got some today, but honestly, it's a little bit difficult really, because the year ago, the pandemic was hitting. So, homes that were up for sale, those listings were getting canceled. No one knew what was going on. And it kind of skews things off because it wasn't exactly a normal spring. But there are some key facts I do want to point out and share with you. So first, if we look at this, I'm going to go to the beginning of this graph and then the very end. So when you look at showings, they're up 49.5%. And this is March's numbers when we go back and look. So showings are up 49.5% and purchase applications are up 39%. They are down slightly week over week for the past couple of weeks based on what's going on with mortgage rates, but year over year, they're still up. Last month, existing home sales were up as well as new home sales. But look at existing inventory. I mean, these are nationwide numbers. I mean, 52% down across the country in the number of homes for sale, and new home inventory is down 4.6%. And that's going to vary depending upon what market you live in. So there's three predominant markets, or two markets I work in, really, three main cities in North Texas, Frisco and Prosper. If we take a look at inventory in those areas, you may have noticed, in fact, even if you saw the blog post I did last week, I talked about, have you noticed a few more for sale signs? And the truth is, there are more listings coming onto the market right now. That happens every single spring, except last spring. That is normal. That is what we expect. But the total number of homes for sale is falling. And what's happening is homes are getting listed and going under contract and into a pending status within the month. And when that happens, they don't get captured in the actual inventory numbers, because that's just looking at a point in time of a given month, a day, right? So 30 days later, you're looking at another day. And the problem is there's a lot of activity in those 30 days that isn't quite being captured, but it does give you a good idea. In Frisco, Texas, the total number of homes for sale is down 73%. In neighboring Prosper, it's down 84%. Right. And then where my other team is located in Southern California, Temecula, the inventory there is down 49% year over year. So even though for the month of March, the number of new listings was up, it's the most we'd seen in quite a few months, total number of homes for sale is still falling based upon how strong demand is right now. So why is that? I mean, what's going on? And, I'm not going to rehash all of it. Go and check out some of the previous videos that are specific to that topic. But one of the main things to consider is right here when you're looking at new construction, because with resale homes not coming on the market, a lot of buyers have turned their attention to new homes. And in, again, this area of North Texas, there's not virtually any new home builders that have inventory. They have wait lists for lots that are not going to be released for another 4 or 5 months. And I know of other communities that they're not even doing another lot release until 2022. So what on earth is going on? Well, this isn't something that happened overnight. It's been years in the making. And I touched on this last month as well. What we're looking at here is going back 50 years on the total number of new single family homes built per year in this country. That average annual units completed is right around 1 million. That's right around 1 million units. When you look at those years in red, those were leading up to when the market burst previously, we're touching 1.5 million new construction homes a year. Look at what happened since 2008, right? We're nowhere near that average. We're nowhere near the trend line. So you've got a situation right now where demand is way up. There's more new households being created. Millennials are, the largest generation, are reaching prime home buying age. And the pandemic really caused all of us to redefine what home is and what we use home for and what we expect out of a home. And it caused a lot of people to realize that where they currently live doesn't meet those needs. A new construction hasn't kept up. 13 years in a row now, we've been behind. Now, new home construction permits are up, and they're going to get back up to that trend line probably here in 2021. But that still doesn't help with the deficit we've been facing for the last 13 years. You couple that with the resale homes that were not listed in the last 12 months, and hence the situation that we're in right now, an absolutely red hot real estate market. So let's look at mortgage rates for a second. Now, mortgage rates have been historically low, right? And the funny thing that we're seeing right now is that rates climbed up to actually about 3.2, 3.25%. They've actually dropped back down a little bit in the last few days, but it's all, we all become conditioned. All of a sudden, after sitting in the twos under 3 for the last several months, all of a sudden now 3.2 seems like it's a really high rate, but historically it's ridiculously low. So we kind of need to keep that in perspective. We have very short-term memories in these things, and it kind of jades what we're looking at. If enough home buyers right now pull back, and I say enough, it's not going to be in droves, but you get a few home buyers pulling back, right? And then you start to see more inventory coming onto the market. That should help bring a little bit more balance to the market per se. So interest rates are going up. We're going to have a new estimate in the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. Actually subscribe to this channel, hit that little bell notification. When I put out a new video like this, you will be notified so you can get information on what the latest trends are. But right now, depends on the forecast, but 3.5, I've even seen forecasts as high as 3 3/4 to close out this year. Where are they going to get? I don't know. and nobody else knows for sure either. But the bottom line is they are trending up currently. Okay, now as the Wall Street Journal says here, when we look at the current real estate market, there has been a lot of concern with regards to home prices and the fact that prices have been going up the way that they have, and what all of this means, and are we heading for another bubble? And I'm going to put a link below that why I don't believe that we're heading for another bubble at all. This is a market right now that's been on a tear based on real demand, not speculation, right? And there's a big difference there. So as the Wall Street Journal says here, the residential real estate market is on its biggest tear since 2006, just before the housing bubble burst and set off a global recession. Yet in nearly every meaningful way, today's market is the inverse of the previous boom, right? Mortgage standards are completely different. Back then, they were extremely loose. But this type of talk about a bubble and about a boom, or a bust, I should say, out of this boom has been there based on prices. I mean, it's crazy. When we look at just March, the median sales price of a home in Frisco is up 23% year over year. In Prosper, it's up 25%. In Temecula, California, it's up 26%. When you look at where those prices are when a home comes onto the market, in all of these markets, Prosper, Frisco, and Temecula, homes are selling right now for an average of 102 to 103% of list price. But it is based on supply and demand. Do I think prices can keep going up at 20, 25%? No. And anybody that says they can, that's crazy. I mean, wages aren't going up at 20, 25% a year. We all wish they were, but they're not. So you're going to find some balance needs to come back. I do honestly expect home price appreciation to taper as we move forward this year, as more inventory comes onto the market and as interest rates go up. As those interest rates goes up, it impacts a buyer's pre-approval amount, right? Whatever they're pre-approved for, that amount's going to come down a little bit. So yes, home prices are up, but they're up because of supply and demand, not because of speculation, as I mentioned earlier. All right, so lastly here, I want to take another look at, or give you an update on foreclosures and forbearance and where we are there, because there was a lot of talk that we've got a foreclosure crisis coming. I never believed that we did have a foreclosure crisis coming. The banks did learn their lesson, right? There's a lot that went on before that isn't going on now. The banks are being more proactive in reaching out to those homeowners in trouble. And they don't want to own property. They simply don't want to own any property. Okay, so where are the latest numbers now? So when this started, you go back to May 29th of last year, we hit 4.75 million mortgages that were in forbearance. And as you can see by this graph, that number was falling. It kind of leveled out from about October into the beginning of this year, right around February. It was trending down, but obviously not as quickly as it had been before. Lately, as we got towards the end of March and the beginning of April, it did start to trend down again. And as we look at the last week that numbers were calculated, April 2nd, you were sitting at 2.31 million mortgages still in forbearance, right? So let's take a look at where that is, where that number is, and how we got there. What happened? How did we go from 4.75 to 2.31? What happened to those mortgages? Well, this is accurate as of the end of March. And 48.9%, so just about 49% of all of those mortgages that went into forbearance that have come out of forbearance, 49% of the mortgages that have come out of forbearance are been paid in full, right? They either were never late on payments and they took the forbearance as a precaution, but never actually needed it. 7.6% paid the loan off entirely, possibly through a sale, and 14.7% that had past due payments have brought those current. Okay, so of the remainder, 35.5% were able to work out a repayment plan. Right? They were able to work with their lender and either modify the loan or get a loan deferral. So a repayment plan was worked out. 15.6% are still in trouble. Okay. So, they've got no plan in place. They don't know what they're going to do. So those are the ones that we really have to keep an eye on, right? So when we look at those, one of the reasons myself and many others were saying this isn't automatically going to lead to a bunch of foreclosures was home equity. Prices have been rising rapidly over the past, or consistently over the past 10 years, and rapidly in the last year. So if we look at this, if we look at the distribution of loans in active forbearance, right, 90% of the loans still in active forbearance have at least 11% equity in them. 41% have greater than 60% equity. If someone's in trouble and they really don't have anything else to do, if you've got 11% equity, you can sell that home, pay off the balance, move to another place, and still have money left over. Right? That's something that didn't exist before. That was an option that was not even on the table, right? The remaining 10% are the ones that now we really have to look at. So those remaining 10%, because they're still in active forbearance, but they may not have enough equity to sell, pay everything off, and move. Those are the ones that are questionable. I honestly believe that for the majority of those, something will get worked out. But for a moment, let's just assume that they didn't, okay? Which I definitely don't hope for anyone, but let's assume that they didn't and all of those homes came onto the market. What exactly does that mean? Well, as I mentioned at the very beginning, inventory is down, right? Last week, I did a blog post on seller's market. I'm going to link to below to that one as well, as I explained what makes up a seller's market, a buyer's market, and a balance market. Right now, it is estimated that in order to bring balance back to our real estate market, we need 2.7 million new properties to come onto the market. 2.7 million new listings to come onto the market to bring balance back. If you remember, 2.31 million homes are still in active forbearance. Of those, the ones that are really in trouble, 10%, represents about 231,000 homes. If all 231,000 homes came onto the market, and we need about 2.7 million homes to bring some balance back, it's a drop in the bucket. I don't hope that happens, but I bring this up just to say the idea that any foreclosures that did come are going to be crushing and cause the real estate market to collapse, it just doesn't add up. The numbers just don't support that theory. It's just not there. And I don't think all of those homes are going to get foreclosed on. There's pending legislation right now to make some additional allowances in order to try and get those back, because, as I said, the banks definitely don't want those homes on the books. That's not what they're in the business for. And this is very, very different from what we experienced before. So there's your recap for April. Hopefully that helps. Market conditions vary from city to city and honestly, neighborhood to neighborhood. If you're in one of the areas where my teams operate, so here in North Texas, Frisco or Prosper, and Southern California, especially Temecula area, and you've got questions about what's going on or a particular situation you want to talk through, please reach out. I'm always happy to schedule a call. There's never a cost, never an obligation, and just talk through the different scenarios to see what makes the most sense for you and your family.